"Have you ever heard of a corrupt manager?" The waiter spilled water, and the manager said, "Are you blind?" The landlady said, "It was just an accident." The manager said, "Madam, he ruined it." The owner said, "It's only paperwork." The waiter said, "I also clean. Thank you for the work." The receptionist said, "We will have to fire him." The owner said, "You can't fire him just for spilling water. Tell me, any suggestions or any solution so we don't have to sell the hostel?" The manager said, "I've checked all the balance sheets. We can't cover the amounts with the banks." The owner said, "Maybe from next month we'll increase our reservations." The receptionist said, "Madam, even if reservations increase, payments still won't come in." The manager said, "If we don't sell now, the hostel will go bankrupt." The owner said, "I don't want to sell a family inheritance." The manager said, "I understand, but it is my duty to tell the truth." The waiter said, "I'm sorry, but it's a lie that reservations aren't full." The manager said, "Don't speak in this matter." The owner said, "Let him speak. He works here." The waiter said, "Reservations are full. I checked last month. Good returns." The manager said, "You only know cleaning, not numbers." The waiter said, "I am in the final month of my accounting degree." I said, "We're wasting time." The owner said, "Waiter, get out of here." The waiter left. The owner said, "So what's the suggestion?" The manager said, "The hostel must be sold before it becomes bankrupt." The owner said, "No." The receptionist said, "Otherwise, the bank will take your inheritance." The owner said, "Better the bank than I sell it myself." The manager said, "I have a buyer. If you want to meet him," the owner said, "call him." The manager said, "I'll arrange a meeting soon." The receptionist said, "This is a difficult but necessary decision." The manager and receptionist left. The manager said, "I had told you to keep reservations low." The receptionist said, "How can I lie to clients?" The manager said, "Don't be afraid. The plan is ready." The waiter was secretly listening to their conversation. The manager said, "Fire the waiter." The receptionist said, "We'll look suspicious." The manager said, "Okay, but be careful. I'm going to call the buyer." They both left. The waiter said, "I must tell the owner, but I have no proof." From behind, the owner came and asked, "Is there a problem?" The waiter said, "Yes, madam. I think we can save the hostel." The owner said, "I want that too." The waiter said, "Something is wrong in the report." The owner said, "How do you know?" The waiter said, "I need the last 3 months' financial reports so I can find out what happened." At that moment, the manager came and said, "Sorry for the interruption. The buyer will come tomorrow for a meeting." The owner said, "So soon?" The manager said, "To stop the crisis, it must happen. The sooner it's sold, the less the loss." The owner said, "Give the waiter the last 3 months' reports." The manager said, "Why the waiter?" The owner said, "I need a second opinion." The manager said, "Don't give the waiter sensitive information." The owner said, "It's my full right. Don't be anxious. Are you hiding something?" The manager said, "No, I won't hide. Tomorrow I will give him the report." The owner said, "Make that the first thing tomorrow." The owner left. The manager said, "What are you trying to achieve?" The waiter said, "You want to auction the hostel." The manager said, "You're a fool." The waiter said, "What time should I come for the documents tomorrow?" The manager said, "Tomorrow at 10. The waiter left. A little later, the receptionist received a call and said, "Yes, how can we help you?" The client asked, "Can I make a reservation?" The receptionist said, "We can't take reservations this year because the hostel is full." Walking past the owner, he overheard this. As soon as the call ended, the owner said, "You denied the client a reservation while we have space." She said, "Maybe I got a bit confused." The owner said, "It's irresponsible to refuse reservations in a crisis." The receptionist said, "I apologize." The owner said, "From today, I'll handle the reception. You take care of the tables." The receptionist said, "Madam, I have been on duty for 5 years." The owner said, "From now on, you'll manage tables." The receptionist left. The next morning, the owner almost fell into the pool while walking. The waiter supported her. The owner said, "Thank you, waiter. You could have gotten hurt. Trust me. I won't let your properties be lost." The owner said, "I need that kind of trust." The waiter said, "Let me review the documents. I'll give you good news." The owner said, "Fine." The waiter said, "Don't lose courage. Keep fighting even if victory seems impossible. Be like Khosrow." The owner said, "Who is Khosrow?" The waiter said, "The one who never loses courage and doesn't give up his right. I will stand by you so that you don't suffer a loss." The owner said, "Why?" The waiter said, "You are a brave woman. I am going to review the papers now. Until I answer, sign nothing." The waiter left. "Sir, I have come to collect the documents," the waiter said. The manager said, "How did you provoke the owner into this madness?" The waiter said, "I will find out your plans. Give me the documents." The manager said, "Don't order me." The manager tossed the documents down from the balcony and said, "Oh, they fell. It will be difficult for me to fetch another copy." The waiter said, "I will tell madam about this action." The manager said, "Tell her. Will she believe me or the waiter?" The waiter left. The receptionist was fixing tables. The manager came and said, "What are you wasting time for?" The receptionist said, "Fool. The owner had me put at the tables." The manager said, "Why?" The receptionist said, "The owner found out that I lied to clients." The manager said, "We must complete the work today, otherwise the plan will fail." The receptionist said, "What about the waiter?" The manager said, "I have entangled him in the paperwork." The receptionist said, "Prepare for the meeting. The owner doesn't want to see me." The manager said, "I will handle her." A moment later, the manager went to the owner and said, "Madam, the buyer will be here in a few minutes and I want to talk to you about the sale." The owner said, "Okay, but I wish you had put as much effort into stopping the crisis." The manager said, "I don't understand." The owner said, "I'm surprised anyone is ready to buy this restaurant in such bad condition." The manager said, "Are you doubting me?" The owner said, "I am not saying anything wrong." The manager said, "You trust the waiter." The owner said, I trust the one I know, and now I am about to lose everything. The manager said, I want to help you because your father was my friend. At that moment, the receptionist arrived. The owner said, what are you doing here? The manager said, I called her. The owner said, now she's a waitress? The manager said, madam, she has experience in these matters. The owner said, I hope you are as experienced in this matter as you were at reception. The manager said, madam, the buyer is here. Shall I make an offer above the commercial price? The owner said, do it. The manager left. The receptionist said, madam, you think badly of me. The owner said, you are hiding something. The receptionist said, no, madam, I just want to help you. On the other side, the manager greeted the buyer. The buyer asked, is everything ready? The manager said, yes, she will agree. The buyer said, I don't want any mistake. The manager said, madam won't know, trust me. The buyer said, you will get your share. The manager and buyer went inside. Meanwhile, the waiter stood at the reception looking at the documents and said, the hostel can still be saved. The phone rang. The waiter answered. The client asked, can I make a reservation? The waiter said, yes, absolutely. The client said, my husband called and was told there is no space. The waiter said, how can you say that? The client said, I heard from the reception that no reservations are possible this year. The waiter said, the hostel is operating normally. I will give you a special discount. The client said, I am coming right now. The call ended. The manager brought the buyer and said, madam, this buyer is a businessman who is offering you the best. The buyer said, nice to meet you. This hostel is in a good location. I would like to buy it. The owner said, what is your offer? The manager said, this buyer offers above market price and ensures you won't have to worry about debts. The buyer said, I will modernize this place, although the report says it's a loss-making deal. The owner said, how did you see the report? The manager said, I prepared the report. Opportunities don't wait. If you sign, everything will be ready in a few hours. The owner said, if I don't sign? The manager said, not signing brings unnecessary risks. As we know, the bank is watching. This is a good option. The manager presented the papers. The owner was about to sign when the waiter came and said, don't sign, madam. The manager said, who allowed you to come in? See? The owner said, let him speak. The waiter said, in the last quarter, $12,000 was reported, while total reservations were $30,000. The money exists, but someone is hiding it. The buyer said, will you make a multi-million deal on a waiter's delusion? The waiter said, this is not delusion, it's reality. The buyer said, madam, will you trust a businessman or this poor waiter? The waiter said, madam, I want to save your father's inheritance. This was built through years of hard work. The owner said, tell the truth, don't lie, or you will go to jail. The receptionist said, I was only following instructions. The manager said, shut up, don't trust a few minutes report. The waiter said, I have a witness to confirm. At that moment, the client arrived. The waiter said, this client was told there are no reservations this year. The client presented the paper and left. The owner said, you will go to jail. The receptionist said, this was all the manager's plan. The owner said, call the police. The buyer said, I am a businessman. I don't want trouble. The manager said, I will not let this plan fail. The manager drew a pistol and fired at the waiter. The owner said, call an ambulance. I will not let anyone take away your happiness. A few days later, the owner said, I thought I had lost everything, but you helped. The waiter said, anyone would have done the same. The owner said, no, not everyone risks their life. I am grateful. The owner kissed the waiter.